Imagine that you are a kid of about 3 to 4 years old in a barren room, sat and trying to resist temptation. Indeed, in front of you is a tray, inside of which on one side is one portion of your most craved confectionery. On the other side are two rations of the same treat. Some minutes ago, someone has explained to you the following rule. When I leave the room, you can wait until I get back on my own, and then you'll be given the two confectionaries. But you can also call me back whenever you want, just by ringing the bell. But I will just give you one ration of the treat. Put simply, wait and get more. That's what we call the marshmallow test. Why marshmallow test? To understand properly, let's go to meet Walter Mischel, the psychologist who designed for the first time the test back in the 1960s and who wrote the book we are reviewing today. The book's title is The Marshmallow Test and was first published in 2014. Walter Mischel died in 2018, but his work is still alive. The first results of the Austrian-born American psychologist's work were published in 1989 as an article titled "The Preschool Self-Imposed Delay of Immediate Gratification for the Sake of Delayed but More Valued Rewards Paradigm." Yeah, I know that it sounds too academic for people like you and me. That's why when the experiment started gaining fame, the media rebaptized it the marshmallow test, even if marshmallows were not really the only confectionery used during the experiment. It was the most craved confectionery of the kid. Let's get back now to you trying to resist temptation. Walter Mischel ran the experience on thousands of preschoolers and then followed them throughout their lives, what scientists call longitudinal studies. His two girls were even part of the experiment. And the experience led, after years of observation, to incredible insights. First, in their adolescence, the kids who waited more did better, whether it was at school or in social life. In adulthood, almost 30 years later, those with longer delayed time were more resilient, more adaptive, and more subject to maintain close relationships. For those kids who had trouble waiting for the delectable delight, they tended to have higher rates of obesity and below average levels of academic achievement late in life. When scientists scanned their brains in adulthood, they saw that the prefrontal cortex involved in effective problem solving, creative thinking, and control of impulsive behaviors was more active in the brain of those who had longer time resistance for the marshmallow test. Contrarily, the brain of low delayers were particularly active in the ventral striatum, which is the primitive part of the brain controlling desire, pleasure, and addictions. Now, you're probably asking yourself, does it mean that there are some kids who naturally had self-control and others not? Or, if a child failed this test, does it mean that he is deemed to fail in his life? Or if a child or if someone or if I have low self-control skills, how can I actually better them? Walter Mischel answers all those questions in the book. Let us start by the second one. If a child failed this test, does it mean that he is deemed to fail in his life? Walter answers this question with a strong no. Failing to wait just shows that he has, at least in this situation, problems with self-control, and that some work needs to be done. The results are indeed a general trend. In fact, and that are the exact words of Walter Mischel, some children start low in delayability and get better at it over the years, and some start out eager and able to delay and then show decreasing levels of self-control over time. Now, the first question, are delayers born or made? Meaning, are there some kids who naturally have self-control and others not? Imagine a moment that you are assisting researchers from the University of Emory in the laboratory in 2001 with mice and plexiglasses ready for experiment. Now let's consider two groups of rodents. The first group has been genetically bred to be fearless and seek novelty. It means that scientists have used methods to alter their DNA at the embryonic stage of their development. These mice are called BLBs. As a result, they showed signs of boldness and are always poking around. The second group, called B6, was genetically altered to have the exact opposite reaction to the first, meaning that they were fearful, always shrinking in plexiglass corners. In their attitude, you could see their shyness as they hide in corners of cages. So, two groups of mice with two sharply opposite genetic endowment. Well, the mice of the first group were placed with a shy mother mouse, an adult B6 mouse, and the fearful mice were placed with a bright mother mouse. Guess what the scientists observed 3 months later when the mice became adults? The mice of the first group lost some of their fearless abilities. Not all of them. The same thing happened with those placed with a bright mother mouse. They started showing fewer signs of shyness. Their cognitive abilities bettered, and they became better at mazes, for example. Their reactivity to stress also improved. Now, are there some kids who naturally have self-control and others not? Or are we born with blank slates? Or on the contrary, is everything pre-wired? The experience shows two conclusions. First, genetic endowment is important in self-control skills. However, the environment, since the time after conception, is equally important. In fact, neither DNA nor environment is alone responsible for the behavior of a human being. It is more a reciprocal interaction between those two factors. So, yes, genes matter and determine the raw base with which we start life. But this raw base is tremendously malleable, especially in the first months or years of life. Asking what prevails between the DNA and the environment is like asking in a rectangle what is the most important. What prevails? Is it the width or the length? Therefore, nature and nurture shape each other. This means that whether a kid or even an adult is naturally good at self-control or not is important, surely, but it's just part of the equation that we cannot really control. The other part of the equation that we can control is to ensure that kids, whatever their genetic book, strengthen their self-control skills. And this brings us back to the third question. If I have low self-control skills, how can I actually better them? Part 2 of this book review expounds on that. Thanks for watching. If you loved, please share, subscribe and click the bell icon to get notified of my next book review. And until next week, do not eat the marshmallow.